Go.
Okay.
I want to go.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I want to go.
Welcome everyone to iRise Conversations with Joan, exclusively on Ocean Radio Canada and Africa. And I'm the award-winning author of the book iRise, The 10 Secrets to Getting Up When Life Knocks You Down. Someone once told me that the man who doesn't read has no advantage over someone who can't read. And there has been a lot of scientific evidence to show that reading improves not just your mind, your mental mind, but also your physical health as well. I wasn't always a reader myself, and I started reading maybe 3 years ago. And in 3 years, I've read about 100 books. And I must say that books have really, really changed my life. So how do books come around? Well, the art of storytelling, which is how a lot of authors write their books, is a talent. It's a skill that I truly respect. Being able to put words together that will capture the reader and take you on a journey where you feel like you're a character in the book is no easy feat. So I really do respect authors. My guest today has written many books. In fact, she's written 5 books so far. So my guest today is Louisa Ibhaze, and she started writing at a really, really young age. And at that age, you're writing for fun, and she had her friends and her sisters to help her proofread her work. But she's grown since then. She loves the ability to be able to create memorable characters, and I read her book, so I know reading memorable characters that you never forget and telling stories that people can relate with. Her writing is greatly influenced by authenticity, spirituality, African culture, women's experiences, love, and life. So with that, I would like to welcome Louisa to the show. Welcome, Louisa.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, Joan. Wow, that introduction. I was wondering who that was, when you were talking.
So good. So let's just get started. But before we get into some questions that I have for you, can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Well, my name is Olunosen Louisa Ibhaze. I always stress Olunosen. I ask people, can you say Olunosen? Because it has a lot of vowels. So I think it's easy to say Olunosen Louisa Ibhaze. I am an author. I've worked in higher education, international development, and gender matters. Presently, I prefer to call myself a diversity, inclusion, and belonging champion. So basically, that's what I do. I have worked with newcomers, and presently I work on refugee matters.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So before I get to my questions as well, I did ask you about some of your favorite songs because I want to be able to play those songs as we go through the show. And you have picked 3 songs. So I'm just wondering, the first one you picked was Sweetest Taboo by Sade. Why did you pick that song?
Well, Sweetest Taboo takes me back to my childhood. Growing up, I had a lot of, I had aunties and uncles, who lived with us. And these were the songs, some of the songs they used to play in the background. And I remember then, when Sade Adu came into, the scene in the 80s, that her hairstyle, was a thing. So those days, we'd go to the salon and we'd say, I want you to weave Sade for me. So so that song, I picked that song because it takes me back to my childhood. Yeah, good memories. That's why I picked that first song.
Okay, cool. And the second song you picked was Close to You by Maxi Priest. Why?
Yeah. So the songs, basically, if you look at it, is a trajectory of my life. So for Maxi Priest takes me to high school, the year of discovery, the year of understanding, my year of becoming. So so that's what Maxi Priest does for me.
Wow. Yeah, I remember Maxi Priest. Like, I haven't heard much about him since then, but definitely he was a part of our teenagers growing up. Cool. And the third song you picked was iRise by Adekunle Gold. Why?
Well, for me, that was my year of realization, because I moved from Nigeria to Canada, not very young. Some people migrate in their 20s. I did that in my 30s, in my late 30s. So with all the challenges, as immigrants, as professional immigrants, you go through before you find your feet. For me, iRise is that song that captures my experience. because where it says, if you listen to the words of the song, it says, the grass usually seems greener on the other side.
Mhm.
And there's a line that says, I realized that the mountains I've been climbing was nothing but sand.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's why I said the songs are a trajectory of my life experiences. Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful choices you made there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing those songs. So we will be playing them, throughout the show. So
Okay.
let's talk about your journey, because you've just mentioned, you songs that kind of represent your journey. So tell us a little bit about your journey, focusing more on your writing, because writing has been a part of your life, from when you were a child. So how did you get started writing? Why? And what is the journey till date?
Well, I started writing at an early age. That is, and when I say early age, I mean primary school. I come from a big family of many women. So, when you come from a family of women, there's always gist, there's always gossip and all of that. So I discovered that, as a child, I started writing comics. I would write comics and take it to primary school. These were usually comics with a moral storyline at the end. Oh, the wicked wife. Why it is good to be good. The disobedient child. Those kind of things. So I wrote comics through primary school. Then I remember when I got to secondary school, JSS1, I will never forget. Back in the day, we used to have all these notebooks. We had, for maths, we had the maths notebook that had the little blocks.
Yeah.
So it was that notebook I remember starting, because I was writing comics then in secondary school, and I went, no, this is secondary school. Because I'm a voracious reader. I've always read books. I have always read books. So I went, you know what, why not try my hand at writing a story? So I started writing stories. And in secondary school, then that's when I got introduced to Mills and Boone, Pace Setters. Primary school, I had read all the Enid Blyton series, Famous Five, and all of that. So I started writing. So I would write all these teenage romances and come to school. And then my friends I had these amazing friends. And I had Abumere. She used to be Abumere Adedeji. She's now Abumere Akinwale. Abumere Akinwale, I had Imoni, I had Kemi, I had Ejiro. So these girls were the ones, I would come with, and then Tajineri, I would come with books, they would come, oh, Louisa, do you have any story for us to read? Do you have any stories for us to read? So those were the people, who I would write and I would give my stories to read. My goal then was and I went, you know what? I have stories to tell. I can actually be published. So my goal then was to be published by Pace Setters. So Pace Setters was, it was by, I can't remember if it's Macmillan or Heinemann, but it was an African series of, books by African writers from different countries. And, growing up reading all the Enid Blytons, reading all the Mills and Boone, you don't see yourselves in these stories. Mm-hmm. So when I discovered Pace Setters, I discovered that, wow, these are mirror stories I can read and read about people like me. So my goal then was, once I finished secondary school, I would get published by these people. But by the time I finished secondary school, they had gone out of print. So I decided, you know what, just keep writing, you would find that publisher. So that's my journey through primary school, secondary school, in regards to writing. But I'll tell you more as we progress.
Okay, wow. But I love how, you discovered it at an early age, and then you had, friends who were willing to read your stories and kind of encourage you to keep going. And to be able to say at that early age, this is my goal, this is my dream, to be published by Pace Setters. A lot of kids, I was still playing in primary school. Like, I didn't even know. Who knows? I was just about playing. So that's really phenomenal that you really discovered your talent very early. And being able to, say, because one thing you said caught me. I read all those books as well, the Nancy Drew, the Famous Fives. And, I'm not sure that I'd ever saw myself, because the joy of reading is when you can see yourself as a character and you become the main actor in the movie. But with those books, like you said, it was difficult to see yourself in it. And then you decided, you know what, hey, let me follow Pace Setters and write those kind of books myself. So that's pretty phenomenal. Okay, so you come up with stories, and you've given us some ways you come up with the stories. Like, what is the process you go through to really come up with stories, create this characters? Is it always based on something that you've seen, heard, or read, or even is some of it even based on your own personal life?
Well, it's many things. It's many things. For me, I'm inspired by, first of all, daily life. Women's experiences, love, life. I get my inspiration from anything. Everything for me in life is content. My conversation with friends, my experiences with people, the news, books I read. I do a lot of research. Like I said, I've always been a voracious reader. I love documentaries. I love history. Sometimes I might be watching a documentary and maybe they're talking of, people at a certain time period. And then I find myself asking questions. What if a person existed at this time and decided to do things differently? And, as a writer, sometimes, you find yourself falling into genres. I believe in authenticity in writing. So I like to write about what I know. Because when you write about what you know, it hits different. You are able to give people a clear picture of what exactly it is you are seeing. You are able to bring them into the story. Because the amazing thing about books for me, and what I love about books is it's a lens into someone else's life. Someone else's thought process, someone else's just a thought into someone else's thought process and life. That is how I like to put it. So for me, it depends. Anything I feed off everything. Everything for me is energy, when it comes to writing. So that is it basically for me. And I said I like to write. I like to write about memory. I like to create memorable characters. I don't like to create just regular characters. I like imperfectly flawed people, because that is life. I mean, my book, Authentic Mama, you realize that, Iya Baby doesn't have the in quote ideal body that everybody is craving for. She was overweight, she was illiterate, she was a mistress, but you know what? She had a good heart.
Yeah.
So imperfectly flawed people. Yeah, that's my nephew in the background. So yeah.
Love it. Okay, well, great. Oh, so I wrote a book as well, and like you, I wrote from a place of authenticity. So I resonate with what you said, writing about what it is that so that you're speaking authoritatively about it that interests you, things that you've researched, and maybe even things that you've experienced, or people who have experienced it. So that's pretty cool. So be careful when Louisa is around you, because she's listening. She might just be inspired by your stories. So, if you want to read about yourself,
just annoy me.
Just annoy her.
Just annoy me.
You might have, I'm worried. You might have your story in one of her books. Okay. So now, you've written 5 books, and when you're introducing yourself, you introduce yourself as first an author, and then you talked about the other things that you do. Growing up, I didn't know many authors personally, and I didn't even hear people say, when I grow up, I want to be an author as a profession. But now I hear and see a lot of people who writing books, authoring has become a profession. Has it really changed? Are we really in the times where authoring a book or being a writer is a profession?
Well, it depends. It depends, because I tell people, because for me, I write fiction, and I've had cause to mentor people. For me, when I'm mentoring a person in regards to writing, I want to see passion, because I didn't go into writing for financial gain. I went into writing because I had stories to tell, and it's something I love doing. But look, I have to pay my bills, so I have to do regular jobs. So there are people who I want to believe, the Sidney Sheldons, maybe the Chimamandas, whose manuscripts were at the right place at the right time, fell into the right hands, and went to the right publisher and found the right audience. They are, they've been lucky too. But I want to believe that, I believe there are people who survive maybe on writing, but I want to believe that they do other things. They do other things. For me, I've not reached that stage. I haven't gotten to that stage. I am still, I'm still in the process of, we are still climbing up the hill, So yeah, so some people who have, been very, very fortunate have spent their time writing books, and the books go into movies and, other kind of franchises, movies. I know that Beyonce took an excerpt from Chimamanda's We Should All Be Feminists. Okay. And it was read in one of her songs.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. So writing is, writing keeps evolving. It's evolving, it's expanding. People are using it, doing different things. Bob Marley's daughter wrote a children's book with just based on Bob Marley's song, 3 Little Birds. Yeah. And she just made it into, all she just did was she just took the words from the song and just put it in a book. and with wonderful illustrations, and voila, that was a book. So it depends on your ability to do different things with what you're working with. Yeah, it's all creative.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess it's how you are able to be creative with your writing. And like you said, you didn't go into it for financial gains, but there might be people who want that to be their main source of income. And so from what you just explained and talked about other people, there are opportunities for your writing to be bigger than just a published book. You can get endorsements, you can be invited to speak on stages, your book might even be into a movie, and who knows. So writing has become, I believe that writing has become a profession that is respected. Because honestly, I wrote a book and I know it's not easy. So oh, you want to write a book, it's not easy, but it's very doable. But be passionate about, like you said, you want to see passion, be passionate about what it is you want to write, have a story or something, a message that you want to share, and you never know where it might get to.
Yes.
Beyonce might use some of your words as well. Who knows? Okay, so writing is one part, but there's also many other things that come after. So put the words together, beautiful. Then there comes the issue of publishing. Then there comes the issue of marketing. There's so much else that goes into being a recognized author. What are some of the challenges that you faced along your journey? Because you've written 5 books. So I want to assume you started, over a decade ago. What are some of those challenges you faced, and how were you able to overcome them?
Well, the thing is, when you start writing, trust me, when you start writing, you dream of, finishing your work, sending it off to a publisher, the publisher loving your work, and then offering you a contract to say, I'm going to publish your work. But in reality, that is not it. Because as writers who write from a place of passion, many times we forget that publishing first of all, is a business. It's a business. If a publisher decides to invest in your work, they need to have read it. I mean, your work might be amazing, but always remember that a publisher needs what they can sell. That's why sometimes you read books and they tell you sex sells.
Yeah.
So a publisher needs something they can sell. They need to believe in your work to say enough to say, you know what, even if this person has written crap, will I be able to sell the crap? This person has written quality work, but will it appeal to the audience? Who is my audience? Who are the people? I mean, what's the point? Sometimes you might have very good books. You hear J.K. Rowling's, her book was rejected by so many publishers before it became what it is today. So as an author who wants to be traditionally published, sometimes, you'll be advised, okay, if you want to be published internationally, go through, find literary agents. But agents too, they get a percentage from what they sell. Because an agent will read your work and say, okay, fine, hello, Joan, I like your work and I think I can sell it to a publisher. So they need to believe in your work and feel it is sellable. And then they pitch it to a publisher, and then that publisher says, okay, since it's come through an agent, I am willing to publish it. Many times, some say, okay, fine. You go on some websites, some publishing websites, and you see clearly stated this under the submissions, we only accept solicited and agented manuscript. Means they only accept manuscripts submissions that come through agents. Because if it comes through an agent, the publisher know that they've already skipped the process of having to read your work and give to editors and say, okay, is this worth publishing and all of that? So many times our manuscripts just find their way into the slush pile. It ends up there and it gets thrown out. So a publisher needs to know they can sell your work. So it is still, for them, it's a business. For us, we're coming from a place, your book is like your child.
Yeah.
You have nurtured this, you've created this story, you believe that, oh, this story is going to change the world. And then it gets to the table of a publisher and the publisher throws it out and goes, I can't sell this. So, so that is why many people decide to go, seek the self-publishing route, because the self-publishing route, you have a lot of control over everything, a lot of things. What you want to put in your book, how you want to market it, how you want to sell it. I mean, you cannot determine the number of buyers, but self-publishing gives you this a sense of more control. It gives you almost 90% control that a traditional publisher wouldn't give you, because sometimes they might read your manuscript and tell you, can you change the end? Can you change the middle? Because this is what we feel we can sell. Let the story go this way. It helps, for them, it's sellable.
Yeah.
So it comes down to business. Yes.
Yeah. So wow. So that for me, like it's almost discouraging because people who write, uh, it takes a lot out of you because you really want to write it your way. And I cannot imagine writing a book, getting to a publisher, and they're changing 80% of the words so that it no longer sounds like you. So I don't know what other authors do. Some people, maybe they're not just passionate about writing, maybe they just want to be published. But if you wanted your words to be your words and be published, you've just mentioned another option, which is self-publishing.
Yes.
So if you feel like maybe one, you can't even get a publisher, you're being rejected, then maybe you should consider self-publishing if you really want your message to come out exactly the way you want it. But at the end of the day, you cannot control the number of sales that comes in. It's not like the publishing houses can, but at least they've been in the market for a while. They have connections.
They have a broader network.
Yeah, they have a broader network and they can position you to make sales.
Yes.
Okay, so those are some top challenges. So anyone who's thinking about writing a book, don't get discouraged if you're not able to get a traditional publisher. There's the option of self-publishing, which you might still get amazing results from. In this world of social media, like you can market yourself by yourself, just get on social media and just handle all those things. And like Louisa said, you gain at least 90% control. There's nothing more than knowing that I've written the book the way I want to write it and my message is being received the way and the exact way that I planned it to be. Okay, so you also mentioned in the beginning of your introduction that you were born in Nigeria, but now you live in Canada and you moved to Canada, and there was the challenges that immigrants face. So a lot of immigrants may not have faced the challenges of being a writer because I don't know too many writers who have immigrated. But what were some of the challenges for you? Because you did publish books before you came. What are some of the challenges that you've now experienced being in Canada and trying to publish your books here in North America?
Well, in North America, I think it's still the same. It's still the same challenges. I've reached out to publishers here. You would have public. Okay, so now I think publishers, I think it's a thing now for many publishers to say we're looking for BIPOC storytellers. BIPOC, that is Black, Indigenous, and people of color, because everybody now is all about diversity, inclusion, equity. And then you send your manuscript off to them and then they reject it. Sometimes you never hear back from them because sometimes they say, oh, you hear back from us in 4 months. You hear from us in 8 months. You don't hear from many of them. I tried to use the agenting route. At least I had an agent who was, kind enough to say, well, your style of writing is not what I'm looking for. It's still, for me, how I see it personally is, it still boils down to your manuscript falling into the right hands. Yeah. I had reached out to, I would not mention the publisher, but I had reached out to an editor on LinkedIn to say, I sent in my manuscript last year. I've still not heard from any of you. And she was kind enough to say, okay, hold on, I'll find out the editor who took a look at your work. And then she got back to me to say, yes, I agree that we are looking for, BIPOC stories, but we are looking for Canada-focused stories. Yeah, so it's still a thing about what it still boils down to what they feel they can sell. Some people, an agent said to me, we don't know how to market, we don't know how to market diverse books. That's what she said. And in my mind, I was wondering, okay, what is the big deal in marketing diverse books? Well, I'm not a marketer. I don't have experience in all of that. So they know what they are talking about. So it still boils down to that. Some people are afraid of what they don't know. It's easier for them to market some kind of book, the J.K. Rowling's, those kind of known names. So most of the time, if you become self-published, right, when you are submitting, sometimes there's this app called, is a query app. Sometimes they ask questions, have you self-published before? And you answer yes. They'll ask how many books have you sold? Or sometimes they ask for your social media handle and ask how many followers you have. Yeah. They ask for Instagram, they ask for Twitter. They want to know, because it's a business for them.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a business for them. So for me, those are still my challenges. How do I get published here by telling my story and remaining authentic? It's still a challenge. But you know what? When you do something from a place of passion, you don't give up. I was talking to someone a few days ago, and I was talking about the challenges I was having with my present pet project. I've had writer's block for the past 2 years. And as a way of getting out of my writer's block to go on to adult books, I decided to work on children's books. And I still met the same challenges, that same brick wall of getting publishers to accept your work and all of that. And I was just explaining to her that, you know what, I think with this one, I'm going to give it self-publishing a shot. But these are the challenges I'm having. Illustrators are expensive, this is this. And then she said, so why do you go on doing this? If you know that you have all these challenges, why not just forget about it? So that is the thing with passion. I have a story to tell. I have stories to tell, and I want to put them out there. So if traditional publishing has become difficult, I'm going to go the self-publishing route. So the interesting thing is sometimes when you go the self-publishing route and your book starts to sell, traditional publishers start reaching out to you, wanting to buy it off you. So it's still a business.
Still a business, wow.
It's a business, yeah.
Okay, so I like what you said about not giving up, because sometimes, especially if for people who maybe this is their only source of daily bread, you're getting rejected over and over again. You might be like, okay, I'm out of this. This writing business is not paying me. I can't feed. I need to just let go. Maybe this is not what God designed for me. Maybe I need to go tell myself the truth and just leave it. But for you, your passion has kept you going. You strongly believe that you do have a message. You want to keep writing. You want to do this. You want to make sure that you reach the people that you want to reach. And that's a very commendable, in the world we live in today, because you're here in North America, and there's so many challenges that we face as new immigrants. But being able to say, you know what, I'm going to find a way, an alternative way to make sure that my books still get out, because I'm committed to this. I'm passionate about this.
Yes.
Regardless of the challenges. And it doesn't mean stop reaching out to publishers. You still reach out to publishers, but let it not stop you dead in your tracks where it's like, okay, well, nobody's calling me back or nobody's responding, so I give up. Just keep going. And you never know. Keep reaching out to people. And keep writing, never stop writing. For me, I think people who are able to write, if you've not written a book before, try it. It is not easy. I wrote my first book. People ask me, when's your next? I'm like,
I tell people that writing is a lonely art.
Yes.
It's a lonely art. You sit alone, you think, and you just sit there, you write. And wisdom nuggets for people who want to write: keep your day job. Keep your day job, keep your night job, keep your afternoon job, and just do this on the side. You get? Just do it on the side. And then when you get to that point, you might, if you decide, okay, you know what, I want to be a full-time writer, if it pays you that well. But for me personally, I would always keep my day job. You understand? I will always keep my day job. Maybe someday, when my books, become big movies and big Hollywood, Nollywood movies and so on, and I'm making enough of that kind of revenue, I might decide, okay, you know what? Let me take my creativity to new heights. Let me do other things with it. Or if the Beyoncé's reach out to me to say, we want an excerpt from your book, for my song. So those kind of things. So it's always going to be centered around writing. Yeah.
Wow. Keep your day job is the message I got. Keep your day job. And it's true for most passion projects. If your passion is not able to pay you what you need to survive, there's no point being homeless and hungry. Keep your day job and keep it as a side hustle, a passion on the side that you're working on and building until it's able to replace your main income. Okay, cool. Okay, so I'm going to take it personal a little bit now. We've been talking about your life, growing up, moving from Nigeria to Canada. There's something you and I share in common, and that's being tall. So I'm 5'11". I suspect you're 5'11" as well.
Yes, 5'11".
And when you're 5'11", you're tall for a woman. And most times there's a perception that you're very masculine, so if people have this presumption about who you are, they kind of just put you in a box. Do you see that as well? Do people assess you wrongly, your personality?
Oh yes. For me, I've always been a tall child. I've always been that tall girl. I've always towered above my friends. I remember as kids, when we go for birthday parties and the chair dance where you dance in circles around chairs, and they would say all the 10-year-olds should do that. I couldn't do that because I think at 10 I already looked 15. Yeah, because I grew really fast. I filled out really, really fast. Yeah. So I had to grow fast. And you have people as a tall woman, it's so interesting, coming from the kind of culture we come from. She's tall. This kind of tall one will be difficult to control. This kind of tall one will not be humble.
Yes.
Why would you want to control me when we can have a simple conversation? And for me, in my own case, I'm not just tall, I'm thick. So I'm 5'11" and I have all this sweetness and all this goodness here. So I am sorry, I'm on very, and for me, because I'm outspoken, I'm very unapologetic. I came into my own very early. Very early, I knew who I knew who I was, who I am, and still where I'm going. I've always known who I am. So I was that girl who couldn't really be influenced. You understand? I always did what I wanted to do. Okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this. This is what I don't want to do. This, I'm not going to do this. And I've always been outspoken. So you know what? If you seem to have a problem with that, then I can't help you. And you know what? I am not apologetic about it. I cannot help you. Valuable things are not accessible to everyone. To source diamonds and to source gold, you need to dig deep.
You need to go deep.
So you can't be everybody's cup of tea when you are champagne.
Ooh.
Yeah, you cannot be flip-flops treated as flip-flops when you are stilettos. So I'm unapologetic about it. This is what it is. If you want to get to know me, you can actually walk up to me, say hello, and start a conversation. But if you sit down there and you make your own assumption based on your complex, many times in life, you realize that people's opinion of you sometimes is a reflection of their insecurities.
Absolutely.
So love, there's really nothing I can do about it. Oh yeah. I'm not for everyone.
And you could just tell the confidence that comes from what you're saying, and I wish more people had that confidence where this is who I am, accept me for who I am, and don't just be there judging me. You don't even know me. If you want to know me, come closer and know me. Don't just say, oh, because she's tall and she's big and she's confident and she's courageous, she's this, she's that.
You think you're all that. Even if you're all, we are all that.
All that, so what?
Yeah, I'm all that. So what? So what?
So I just want to encourage people. Like you might be very tall and you're feeling uncomfortable. Like I have little nieces and nephews who are already towering over me. They're over 6 feet tall, and you can see that even my goddaughter, she's really tall compared to her peers, and you can see that she's kind of hunching over because she would prefer to be shorter or be smaller because it looks more feminine, and maybe even bullied at school. Come into your own, own it. There are things you can't change, and how tall you are is one of them. So just own it and embrace it. Like people will either reject you or accept you. You cannot be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay.
Yeah, what you said about your goddaughter, I went through that phase. I remember when I was in, primary school and secondary school, I didn't like the fact that I was taller than all the boys. Yeah, I didn't like that I was taller than all the boys. And there was a time I used to wear wedges a lot. And then I remember a guy telling me one time, you're always taller than us when you wear these wedges. And then I started wearing flats. Now I want to go back to wearing wedges.
Oh my God.
And I'm struggling, I'm struggling. So as kids go through that phase, because you start out tall and gangly, and then before you start to fill out and all of that. So as parents and as adults, I think that it is important we encourage children. I remember growing up, I hate it when you hear people, having nicknames, Tolly, Giant, all those kind of stupid things. So it is left for us as adults, to encourage these kids, because trust me, God who created all of us knew what he was doing. If he felt that we're going to be better off as being average height or short people, God would have done that. But if he created us in this vessel of glory, that is because he felt this is what we should, this is where we should be. Go and look through history. I'm a history buff. I read a lot. Go and look through history. When they spoke about great women, many of them were tall. When they describe great queens, they will tell you she stood tall and she stood elegant. So for me, when I step out, in my colored hair and whatever it is, and I walk, I can't help you. I own it. That is it. This is what it is. It is what it is. There's really nothing. I don't even want to do anything about it. So you take it or leave it.
So there's nothing to do about it. And you touched on something briefly about relationships and men. So men who feel intimidated by tall women, look within yourself. It might be your own insecurity that
Your
you're
own insecurity, yeah.
a woman is tall doesn't mean that she's not a nice person or she's not feminine or she can't do the things that you want a woman to do. So, don't be scared. Walk up to her and
walk up to her, try your luck. I mean, if you walk up to her, you discover that, okay, fine. You might even be surprised. If you walk up to her, you feel that, okay, this is not my cup of tea. Move on. It's okay. It's okay. No hard feelings. On to the next.
Yeah. Next. Exactly. So don't be afraid of we tall ones.
Oh, don't be afraid of us. Don't be afraid of us.
We don't bite. We might bite.
Don't be afraid of us. We have good hearts. We have good hearts.
Cool. Okay. Another thing I want to touch on is your looks. And you already said your bold colored hair.
Oh, yeah.
Your style is bold. So you can imagine you're tall, you're thick, and your colors, your style.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, because this has now become your signature look.
Yeah.
How did you come to this whole, okay, this is how I always want to look, this is how I want to represent myself? What does the way you dress symbolize? What does it mean for you?
I think it just symbolizes me, Olunosen, the authentic me. My hair many times is a reflection of how I feel, my mood. And I remember back in the day, when I got into the, colored hair, dye my hair, do this, do that. And, my dad was in the military. So for him, it was always no blonde hair in this house, this, but I couldn't help it. Oh yeah. I remember one time I went somewhere with my dad and he said to me, he went to see some Top Shot and he asked me to sit in the car and not to get down from the car. And I went, Daddy, why? He said, because you have on blonde hair. I don't want you coming down with blonde hair. Wow. Yeah. And, a lot of times people say, dress the way you want to be addressed. Yeah, dress the way you want to be addressed. And I don't think that, by having colored hair, you are irresponsible. It's like people say, when you talk about inclusion now and black hair, the kinky hair, the afros, people say afros, dreadlocks, braids are not professional. Who gets to determine what is professional when I'm not naked? Who gets to determine what is professional? Yeah. So for me, this is me. I love colored hair. Nothing says you cannot wear colors. As I'm talking to you today, I have on red hair. Red lipstick, this is how I feel. You might meet me some other day and I have on blue hair, that is how I feel. Somehow, when you came to visit, when we went out, I had purple hair. Yeah. That was how I felt. Yeah. I remember when I went for there was a party I had when we were in secondary school. And I was going to wear, I said I was looking for what to wear. I was not one of those girls who was fortunate enough, my mom was a very strict mom. So she didn't indulge us in, things that were trending. When girls were wearing leggings, wearing all those things, she didn't encourage us. So we had those regular clothes. For me, I was tall, I was big. So it's either you go to, even if I had gone to look for my size in those things, in the tops, either the sleeves would be too short, the trousers, it would be too short. So I remember then I had gone to a tailor and my mom gave me fabric. And I said I was going to make a skirt suit with it. And I told the tailor I was going to design what I was going to wear. And the tailor went, but if it's just a suit you want, I could do the suits that were in vogue at that time were double-breasted suits. Oh, yeah, she said, I can just make you a double-breasted suit. And I said to her, yes, make me a double-breasted skirt suit, but open up the sleeves. Open the shoulders, open up the sleeves. So she went, that's weird. I said, yeah, but that's what I want. Do it for me. So she made it for me. And I remember wearing that dress. And, a lady saw me and started to laugh. But for me, I didn't get it because it was what I wanted to wear. And my friends saw it and they went, okay, you've come again with this. What is this style? So for me, I've just always been that way. I've always been that child who has always been different. I'm sitting here with you now. I have tons of all kinds of books. I have tons of books, history, everything. Yeah. So it's just me. It's just me in my authenticity and just being myself. Yeah.
Authenticity. I think that's one of my favorite words. And as you were talking about your style and really coming to terms with it very early and owning it. And I was thinking about myself, I'm not as bold. I do wear colors, but not as boldly. And if you ask me what my style is, I don't even know what my style is, to be honest. I just wear what's comfortable. But I think being able to really, really pinpoint, this is how I want to look and be intentional about it and embrace it, damning whatever anybody else has to say. It's about how you feel, and you're wearing yours very boldly. Like even people are laughing, like, what do I care?
What do I care?
Wear, and a lot of us, we try to fit in. It's this idea of you got to fit in so that other people are comfortable. you're just doing you. You know?
People, you see, one thing about life is this, right? Another wisdom nugget. People have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is where we are heading now. You understand? We are talking about race. We are talking about equity. People have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is the truth. Yeah, we just have to. We have to. Because you sit down, you try to conform. Conform to what? If you remember, who made these rules?
Who made these rules?
Yeah, someone woke up one day and made, yes, who made these rules? Someone woke up one day and made rules. And remember, when people make rules, as human beings, we are selfish.
Yeah.
So when people make rules, they'll make rules that will be of benefit to them.
That is true.
Yeah. So for me, I don't live a life of regrets. I've had good experiences, I've had bad experiences, you know, with people, with jobs, with friends, with everything. But I take everything as a learning process, and then I adjust and I continue. You know, you don't fly into flying. You start, like, if you look at a child, you start crawling, you start walking, you start running, jumping, then flying. So everything, yeah. So you have that experience, you go back to your drawing board, okay, where, what and what. Always take responsibility for your actions. And remember, many times, people's opinion of you is none of your business. Yeah. Yep. People's opinion is none of your business. People, look, everybody can't like you. Some people will like you, some people will not like you. And you know what? You can't help it. It's none of your business. Yeah.
Every experience is a learning. And I love
that. So let's experience.
Take responsibility for what has happened and just move on.
And just move on. Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay, awesome. Wow. So please be bold with your looks. You know, if it's something you've always wanted, you know, you want to dress a certain way, go ahead and own it. It's your life. Life is too short. You don't want to wake up and have regrets because you were not living your authentic life. You know, life is best enjoyed when you know you wake up. I look exactly the way I want to look. I feel how I want to feel. And, you know, everybody else has to accept or stay uncomfortable. That's okay.
Yeah. Deal with it. It's, you know, it is what it is. Yeah.
So another thing that you started, I don't know, maybe like a year or two ago, you started this movement. I call it a movement. It's called the Simple Ishan Girl.
Yes.
It's spelled ESAN. So Ishan is a tribe in Nigeria. So what's the story behind it? What inspired you to set it? What is it, first of all, and what inspired you to set it up?
So Simple Esan Girl. So first of all, Esan is the ethnic group I belong to. You know, I don't know. I run away from the word tribe because when I think of tribe, I picture people running, you know, with spears and all of that. Yes. So Esan is my ethnic group, you know, from Edo State. So when I started Simple Esan Girl, I realized that a lot of people, you know, I'm into culture promotion. I love where I am proud of who I am and what I'm all about. So Simple Esan Girl for me is just thinking of that child, you know, it is a child. You know, when you think of Simple Esan Girl, you go, okay, what is an Esan Girl? You start to think, okay, what comes into your mind is, okay, a child, and I put simple, humility. I started it, Simple Esan Girl is about 5 years old now. I actually started this as an initiative, you know, to provide school books and sanitary towels to children in schools. So books for kids, sanitary towels to girls. Because I realized that, you see, there is something, we take a lot of things for granted. Until you talk to people, you realize, especially people who have challenges, people who don't have access to the things we take for granted, you realize how difficult it is for women during their period to have access to things as little as sanitary towels. I remember when I came here 2 Christmases ago, one of my managers was doing, she had boxes that she puts goodies for homeless women. And she came to all of us and said, do you guys want to add anything to the boxes? And, you know, I thought about it and I went, sanitary towels. You know, in developing countries, some girls don't go to school because they're on their periods. They have to stay at home. Some people have to use cloths. They don't have all of that. People don't have access to books. Books for me is my escape, you know, from a lot of things. So that was the reason why I started Simple Esan Girl then, you know, to have the ability to provide books and sanitary towels to kids. So far we've been able to reach out to orphanages and then homeless women. But it's something that is still growing, that, you know, with time, I'm going to make out time to focus on it and build it. So that is what Simple Esan Girl is.
That's fun. That's phenomenal. So thank you for doing that. It's again, like you said, a lot of times things we take for granted, a lot of people really have no idea. They don't have it. They don't have access to it, and we just take it for granted. So being able to really give back, to young girls
Yes.
is phenomenal. So if people wanted to be a part of this or wanted to contribute, what is the best way for them to be a part of this?
Oh, reach out to me. Oh yeah, reach out to me. Like I said, I'm still building it. So over time, we would have as we continue to do more work, I would decide to have a website. I would decide to have an account for that. But if anybody is interested, the person can reach out to me. But for me, that is, yeah. So because when I said a book and a pad, everybody would have been like, oh, why are you so focused on the girl child? So that's why I said books too. Books is for everybody. Yeah, books is for now. I'm working on children's books. So my goal with these books is, even if I get it published, is to be able to also donate, these books to schools. Yeah, because look, the joy on the face of a child when you receive, a storybook. Mm-hmm. You open it, you look at all those colors, you imagine yourself lost in those colors. See, it is, I don't know how to explain it. I saw when Oprah Winfrey did the 20th anniversary of her show. She went to, was it South Africa or Zimbabwe? She went to one country in East Africa, and she gave them sandals. She gave the children sandals, school bags, and dolls. If you saw, I was in tears when I saw it. If you saw the joy on their faces. So for me, if this is the little I can do, I can't solve the problems of the world. Mm-hmm. But if I can give you that book to get lost in and escape, if I can provide that pad to support you, I'm good. Yeah.
And hope, because when you read books and you read stories of other people, it gives you hope as well.
Yes.
I remember reading as a kid, and there were things like, even though we read a lot of in books when we were kids, mm-hmm. I know reading about all those London Bridge, and I was like, oh, I definitely want to go there. You read stories, and you're like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to experience that. It's an escape, and kids need that, regardless of what's going on in the environment. So if any of the listeners, you feel like you want to be part of this initiative, you want to contribute, reach out to Louisa directly. You can find her on social media. Okay, so now we've talked about your books, we've talked about a bit about your life, your personal life, and all that's going on. You've been in Canada now for a couple of years. You've written some books here as well. You're trying to self-publish your children's books. What advice do you have for people who want to get started writing? Like people who've never written anything ever in their lives, but they've had that dream, that thing inside of them telling them that, you have a message to tell. What advice do you have for them? What are some of the things that they need to know before they even start putting pen to paper? If there were three top things you would say, what would those be?
The first thing I would say is write.
Wow, just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, just do it. 2, what do you want to write about? 3, why? So 1, just write. 2, the what, the why, and then I would add 4, the who. First of all, write anything. 2, what do you want to write about? What story do you want to tell? 3, why do you want to tell this story? 4, who is your target audience? I'll give you an example. For me, So for me, when I write, if you follow the history, if you read my books, you will discover that through the years, my stories have changed. Now I am focused on, I have a unique genre, which I choose to call the aproko genre. I like to write about the lower crust of the society. Because everybody has written about immigration, everybody has written about the ills. People underestimate the power of laughter. They underestimate the power of humor. So for me, humor is my healing for people. Read about the lower crust. You see that woman selling granuts there. You just assume, she's poor. She just came out to sell granuts. Mm-hmm. You forget that, you see, when she goes home to something. Something brought about that. So know the kind of story you want to tell. Why do you want to tell the story? Okay, Maya Angelou said something. If there's a book you want to read and you can't find to buy, write it.
Yeah.
Just write it. Trust me, everybody has a story to tell. But you see, writing is a process. You write, you get people to read, seek mentorship if that's what you need. Because when we talk about writing, there's something about style of writing. They talk about, show, don't tell. When you write. Yeah. Try to get mentored, read a lot of books. When you read a lot of books, you realize that everybody has their style of writing. Sidney Sheldon writes different from Daniel Steele. Daniel Steele writes different from Penny Jordan. Penny Jordan writes different from Chimamanda. Chimamanda writes different from Oke Dibe. Different kinds of books. You need to. I met an old woman, years ago when I was doing my master's in the UK, and we started talking. And what brought us together was the fact that I had read so many of the books she had read. And she went to my friend and she said, who is this young friend of yours that has read so much? Because she didn't understand how I had read so much. So it's important, read, know what you want to write, and understand everybody must not write fiction. If your strength is in writing non-fiction, self-help books, you understand? Read, be an authority. Make sure you are teaching. Look, people say, oh, everybody has written about it, but trust me, what you're going to write will be different from what every other person is writing.
Absolutely.
You know, I met someone once who was writing about gender. It wasn't fiction he was writing. He was writing something like a textbook, like a study aid for schools. And I went to the back of the book to look at his qualifications. And I said to him, listen, if you are going to pitch this book to any academic institution, first of all, you need to get trained in this. You have just a BSc in post science, and I don't think that your experience is enough to make you an authority on gender matters. So, because if you're going to pitch this to a school, what angle are you coming from? What authority do you have to pitch gender matters to someone? Because anybody who hears gender will just assume, gender matters will just assume, oh, you're talking about women, oh, women in developing countries. That's not true. It cuts across men and women, and how everybody can have equal access to resources. So those are the things. So do your homework, do your background, do your homework. If you feel there are people you need to reach out to, when I wanted to go into children's books, I had never really written children's books. I started to follow, authors, children's authors. I reached out to different authors to ask. I even had my manuscript assessed by a consultant who had written over 30 books. And by the time she brought it, she sent it back to me. I came to see that, okay, fine, I'm used to writing for adults, but she started with your word count. I wrote a children's book of 4,000 words. And she said, no, children's books are between 700 to 1,500 words. So these are the little things. You need to know your choice of words. You need to be able to create a flow, create a climax, create a resolution. So those are the things you need to learn. Yeah.
Wow. So basically, write, but also go learn how to write.
You need to learn how to write. Yeah.
But learn how to write properly and get mentorship. I think mentorship is very powerful. Be humble. Don't say that you know it all. Seek out people that have gone ahead and done it before you, probably even done it better than you, and find ways that you can learn from their successes and glean from some of their existing knowledge. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And become an authority. I really like that, because I wanted to write a book on leadership, and I'm like, who am I to talk about leadership? And it's taking me, I'm a leader where I work, I teach, I'm a professor of leadership as well. So all of that is coming together. And now I still don't feel qualified to write a book on leadership, but I feel better. I know way more now than I did a couple of years ago when I wanted to write that book. So I agree with you. Go become an authority, because at the end of the day, you have to show that you know what it is you're talking about. Yes. People can tell.
Yeah, people can tell. When you're speaking it, they know.
When you're reading, you will know. People can tell.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So thank you for those words of wisdom. So anyone who's really thinking about writing and writing seriously, just get started, start writing, but also go learn how to write properly and get mentorship and do it the right way. And we wish you all the best success. There's a lot of reward, a lot of self-satisfaction that comes with writing or seeing your book published. Really, I would recommend it for everyone. Okay, so final question is, if you were to start all over again, you started at an early age. If you could start all over again, writing building your writing career, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? For now, I can't think of anything I would have done differently, because everything for me has been a learning process. I started writing comics. So I was the girl who would stand in front of the class and tell stories about the tortoise. And then from there, I moved on to writing comics. From writing comics, I moved on to writing teenage romance. I started writing with a pen. I would write with my pen, and then I would get my dad's secretary to type them out for me. And then when computers and all of that came, I started doing that myself. So it's been a learning process and been a progression for me. Even if now that I've gone from writing adult books to writing children's books, I still feel it is still progression. So I wouldn't have done anything differently. The only thing I would have wished, was that I wished that early enough my books found their way fell into the right hands, got to the right publisher and the right audience. Yeah, that's the only thing I wished happened earlier. And I still wish, I'm still wishing it happens, that it falls into the right hands at the right time. Yeah, but in terms of my writing and all of that, I wouldn't have done anything earlier. I mean, I wouldn't change anything.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's so many things in my life that I've done differently. Like, it's not coming from a place of regret. It's just maybe one or two things like if I think about how I wrote my book, maybe I'd have done one or two things differently. But like you said, it's all a learning journey, and where you are today, you've evolved in your writing skills. So you're still growing. Like, we don't know what you're going to be writing in a couple of years, but you're still growing and evolving. So it doesn't matter where people are, just accept where you are and just keep evolving and developing yourself. And you mentioned one thing, for parents who have kids who are starting to show that talent in writing, what can those parents do to either support or encourage their kids?
So I think it's very, very important. Like, I have nieces now. I have nieces and children of my friends who reach out to me to say, oh, my daughter is like you, she likes writing. Look, buy them books, get them jotters. My niece likes to draw. My other niece likes to write. So I said to them, when you write your stories, send them to me. I will read it. You understand? If it's something we can work on, I will get it, to encourage them. I'll get it published, and it will be co-authored by me and my niece. Yeah, I started life as a, after my youth service, my very first job was as an English teacher. And I remember one time, like, my kids, we used to have fun in the class because I used to teach English comprehension and verbal aptitude. So when we would have free periods, we would read, we would do reading competition. And kids, I noticed kids they're amazing. I would give them chalks. They would like to write on the board. So it would be girls against the boys. And then we'll have spelling competitions, we'll have reading competition. And I was trying to focus on to build concentration and love for reading. So I would ask somebody to start. And then I'll go, stop, you next. So if you are not following that person, you will not know where the person stopped. And I found this particular boy, he wasn't really, I wouldn't say he was a dull child, but he was just somebody who wasn't really interested in studying and all of that. But I found him one day writing a story in the class. He wrote and it had illustrations. So I think when I saw it as a teacher, he thought I would seize it. And I looked at it and I said, oh, this is really nice. What are you writing? He said, I'm writing a story. I said, okay. We had midterm break. So the kids were off, I think Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. So I gave them a project and I said to them, for your midterm break, all of you are going to write stories. You would write stories, tell your parents to get your 20-leaf notebook, write stories, draw, color, decorate the back and submit to me on Wednesday. My God, what these kids did, I was so amazed, so amazed. So for me, I think children should be encouraged. Children should be, if you see that your child has, a talent, encourage it, especially for writing. Buy the child books, get her crayons, get her pencils. If she wants to draw, my niece draws very well. And I told my sister, this girl, I see her being an illustrator. Try to build, African parents, every parent wants you to either be a doctor, an engineer, a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. Everybody can. Me, it was law. My parents wanted me to do law. I wanted to do medicine. But by the time physics, chemistry, and biology, flat, right, center. I did all of that and it was rubbish. And I just told myself, you know what, Louisa, don't deceive yourself. I wrote English and literature and I came out with A1s. I didn't even have to read to pass this course. So why was I stressing myself? So parents, African parents should encourage their children. Just encourage the child. You never know.
Okay, awesome. So what next? What can the world expect from Louisa in the near future?
In the near future, well, for now, expect children's books from me. I have a couple of series I'm working on. I have, the Africa is Not a Content series, a series of books, of children's books, teaching children about the African continent. Then I have the Bringing Fairy Tale Home series also, which is, because all these fairy tales we grew up reading were set in different in on different continents.
Mhm.
We can bring these stories home. How would you feel if you had a Rapunzel, you understand, who was an African girl with Afro, do you understand, who lived in a village? You understand, you know, things like that. So for me, these are the things I am working on at the moment. I still have my adult stories that are still pending. I'm still working on those, but I think those ones I will focus on them next year. But for now, my children's books is what people should be expecting.
Wow. Well, we can't wait, you know, so please go follow her on social media so you can know when the books are available in stores. I'm sure they'll be available globally. So thank you very, very much for all the nuggets. You know, we talked about writing books, we talked about your life, you know, moving from Nigeria to Canada. We talked about the challenges. You know, we also talked about being a tall female and having to deal with that. And then we talked about authenticity and really showing up as your true self, dressing the way you want to be addressed or just the way you want to feel, and really owning that, and you know, kind of encouraging parents to allow their kids, allow your children, even if your relationships, allow your spouse to be themselves, to show up as their authentic self. You know, we don't have to always try to fit in. We're all created unique and we're created to be authentic. So thank you very, very much, Louisa. This was amazing. I definitely learned a lot from you today. So thank you once again, guys, for tuning in. Thank you for joining the show. We will return same time next week, and I really hope you all enjoyed it. A quick shout out to my in-house DJ, Dizzle, who's been giving us all the latest hits, and to my producer, Zidane, as well. That's it for me. Again, I'm Joan Nwosu, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Thanks.